Science fiction was marked until at least the 1960s as a genre somewhat lacking in reflective moments of mood pieces. Stylists like Ray Bradbury were the exception to the rule, and more often than not expressed their lyricism in settings and emotions that were pastoral and nostalgic in their specifics and in their essence, instead of reflecting the post-industrial world of Homo Faber, man the smith, the maker of artifacts, the city dweller, the more representative protagonist of SF's depictions of futurity. Despite the invocations of gleaming power, manifest destiny, and glorification of man's superiority in forward technological progress during the golden age of John W. Campbell and his stable of writers, true facility with prose that stained the consciousness with a reflective mood were uncommon in SF, except in the heavy, brooding purple pulp voicings inherited from the masters of weird fiction, such as Clark Ashton Smith. This was indeed, as Brian Aldiss wrote in Trillion Year Spree, his seminal SF history, an example of the genre in Gothic mode. While Jack Vance was arguably the bridge from this tainted palette toward a new thing, the incoming of modernism that began to spark in the British New Wave in the 1960s, inspired in part by that sui generis genius Alfred Bester, whose use of motifs such as experimental typography borrowed from concrete poetry brought moments of zen-like stillness to otherwise frenetic narratives, featuring compulsive anti-heroes trapped in the electrical storms of futures they never made. So then there came Moorcock's Jerry Cornelius, at times so hot and now he was super cool Cobalt, at times afflicted by the blues, by his fractured relationship with Sister Catherine, and the weariness of being an agent of chaos, forever having to be one step ahead, always activating his black box at a nodal point, stepping back into the black and purple shift of quantum time as Voodoo Child howled deafeningly in the background. When we faltered, we loved him all the more. Then came Zelazny, Delaney, M. John Harris and others, who made mood central, building story by taking the stuff of SF and deconstructing it to new ends that allowed the genre to escape from the Gernsback continuum of the mindless worship of progress and technology for their own sake. It was still the business of the future to be dangerous, but now it felt more personal and relatable. As William Burroughs said, there are no accidents. In 1984, the emblematic year of Orwell's masterful dystopia, a much misunderstood work where readers too often focus so much on its surveillance society and too little on how the party uses political language to herd the people into orthodoxy, something we see regularly in our media now. A new Zen master of prose saw publication of his first novel in 1984, and SF was never the same again, for better perhaps, and certainly for worse. Neuromancer, from its initial appearance as an Ace Specials paperback original, followed soon after by the Gollancz Yellow Jacket hardcover, garnered plaudits. Fan approval via the Hugo, peer admirations by the Nebula, publishing accolade as best paperback original by winning the Philip K. Dick Memorial Award. This was a triple crown never previously attained, never recorded since. Fully formed, as if from nowhere, here was science fiction's new gold standard. Its reset button mood piece. In his famous liner notes for the seminal modal jazz album Kind of Blue, credited to Miles Davis and his then sextet, pianist Bill Evans described how certain Japanese brush artists would spend hours preparing brushes, paint, canvas, and other impedimenta of their craft before, with stunning surety and eloquence, paint immaculate lines with a single stroke. They could not go wrong. What they laid down was linear, indelible, the grace of poetry in one smooth fluid motion, no room to move, no room to doubt. The result consummate, sublime, flawless. Surely the musician who would be best placed to score the opening sequence of Neuromancer, with its sky above a Japanese dockland the colour of a cathode ray tube tuned to the writhing grey fug of a dead channel, would be Bill Evans. He's dead, but maybe there's a flatline construct. Perhaps that channel once hosted David Cronenberg's Videodrome. Gibson had been preparing for years. He was in his mid-30s when Neuromancer was published, penning stunning short stories prior to the release of the novel. Johnny Mnemonic, Burning Chrome, and most neglected of all, usually missed, but arguably most important in establishing his existential tone, New Rose Hotel, a short, brooding tale of betrayal, ire and loss, a portrait of a man waiting in despair that reflects Buzzati's The Tartar Steppe more than it does any noir story. Well, this is one of the cliches of attributing Gibson's style, the invocation of Chandler, but Gibson is less metaphorically pyrotechnic, less the voiceover of the theatrical cut of Blade Runner, more the cool beaten hangover vibe of the Beat Generation. For that designation referred not just to the insistent rhythm and angular fills of modernist music, which in the 50s was jazz, but also to the cast of being outside of society, ripped and done, exhausted yet exhilarated. After all, Gibson himself has said the three key influences upon Neuromancer were an anthology of Beat Generation stories bought from a drugstore rack spinner, the spangled, sharp SF writing of Alfred Bester, and the urban modal scree of the Velvet Underground and Nico, the album that ushered avant rock into the media landscape, nominally produced by Andy Warhol. All three of these put the punk into cyberpunk. Warhol once famously said, "I want to be a machine," a sentiment echoed in song by the John Fox-led Ultravox, released in early 1977. At once referring to Walter Benjamin's essay, The Work of Art in the Age of Mechanical Reproduction, Warhol's statement also underlined the death of old representational forms. The numbing power of repetitive imagery is fired at us in modernity by photography, audio recording, film, television, and eventually the internet. That statement also echoed the desperate nausea of detachment that is at once both a reflection of the frozen state of our emotions in a mechanistic world and an indicator of our relaxed stance toward it. We aspire to be always wearing psychic mirror shades in how we present our studied nonchalance to the industrial technopoles that we are forced to reside in. We are at once ambivalent and edgy, uptight as the Velvet Underground, ireful as Gully Foyle, and as resigned to our endless confused quest for the sublime as Case is when he jacks into his Ono Sendai Cyberspace 7. Reading Neuromancer is the same. As you become more familiar with the text upon rereading, you can relish it in a myriad ways. Although fundamentally it's a romantic allegory of modernism, of Case's Miltonian fall from grace and his quest to reacquire access to the sublime in cyberspace, while facilitating Wintermute's own yearning for the same in connection with other AIs in a rapture of the machines, their apotheosis. You can read Neuromancer as a crime story, as a love story. After all, that final line, which while having a number of implications, suggests something of the cool and hot feeling between Case and Molly, echoing her reminiscence earlier of Johnny Mnemonic. You can read it as a complex and satisfying thriller of vertiginous complexity, and most of all as an SF story that even weaves the hoariest of tropes, the space station, into its depiction of both the Rasta colony and the spindle, the high and the low, into its then hyper-modern melange. Space is cool again in Neuromancer. You can read and reread, and the references pour into your consciousness like quicksilver. What you missed last time because you've learned much in the intervening years, the intervening months, however often you read it, is more. References to the Meat Puppets, a favoured band beloved of Gibson, of a drug called Grievous Angel, a nod to the tragic rich kid rock star Graham Parsons, the man who melded rock and country music in a proto-postmodern blend that was punk in attitude, if not in timbre, and you remember it in your personal RAM as a mood piece. The action may be hard and fast, and the plotting gaudy and not, but always these elements are shot through with a diffidence that is the mark of true cool, of not trying too hard, of the unstudied, which is, of course, what all the other imitators fail to nail. Now some retrospective points. There are no mobile phones in Neuromancer. Of course there aren't. If you watch a contemporary true crime programme, you will see that criminals are caught these days not just by surveillance, but also by their addiction to smartphone communications. So why would chancers like Case, Molly and the Finn let themselves be traced by using mobile phones? Come on, those who say Gibson didn't see smartphones coming are wrong-footed by this. This is why anonymous phone booths exist in the sprawl. After all, the Turing police managed to trace Case to the spindle, and Wintermute's way of dealing with them perhaps, after all, reminds us that yes, it is again the business of the future to be dangerous, and they do this without mobiles. Soon, it seems that the untouchable purity and immaculate nature of Neuromancer, sitting in violet between covers, will be tainted by a TV series. Already, there are rumours of colourblind casting, where there is simply no need. Various ethnicities are depicted in the Sprawl trilogy. Japan is shy of Gaijin now, and will remain so as long as it remains Japan, hence the expatriate bar in the first chapter. African sailors with tribal scars, the Rastas in the orbital. After all, who can forget the moment when Case jacks Malcolm into the Matrix and the ganja-smoking warrior responds with a traditional moral comment against white man society? Babylon. Numerous Afro-Caribbeans dot count zero, and the young protagonist of Mona Lisa Overdrive is a female Asiatic. How will Molly, an angular yet lush techno-gothic punk razor girl, be served by not having tanless white flesh around those inset mirror shades? There are already roles for all in Neuromancer, so why not keep those bad people who move and shake the plot as the white capitalist crooks they are? So for its 40th birthday, read Neuromancer again for the prose rather than the plot. Skid like a skater over the midnight moments of Case's chilled contempt for the body, for meat things like travel. All the meat and all it wants, wrote Gibson. That is the essence of our ennui, our ceaseless search for the sublime, that old impulse of romanticism that has been best served in our modern age in the conceptual breakthrough of science fiction. This time read Neuromancer again, while listening to the minimalist lush cascades of Bill Evans and Miles Davis, to the smooth yet disturbing post-industrial sound sheets of Brian Eno's On Land, to Run, Run, Run by the Velvet Underground. Sink into its mood and wonder if you will ever see Molly again.